Now that we have our model inside of our Unreal Engine scene, it's time to get the textures on our mushroom house. Importing our textures into Unreal is really easy, and it's very similar in structure and in sequence to how we import all of our geometry in. There's one small addition that we need to make into our import process and to be mindful of as we go through this entire sequence, but it's really easy, very straightforward. So let's jump in. So we're going to begin in the content browser. Now, you're probably going to have a lot of textures. If you have multiple materials on one mesh object, you're going to have a number of these different texture sets that you're going to have to manage, and potentially a number of different materials, which is just fine. This sequence is identical for every material that we're going to be working with. The larger point being, if you have a bunch of these, you're probably going to want to have your own folder. And let's do that real fast. I'm going to jump over into my content browser and then right click just in the background of this empty area. And then from the pull down menu here, we're going to do new folder. And let's just give this a name. And I apologize for it being in front of my body at the moment. I'm just naming this folder textures. Now, if you were to double click on that folder, any new asset that you import into the Unreal Engine is going to be placed automatically inside of this folder. So we're going to import the textures identically to the way we imported in all of our mesh objects. Right click on the content browser, and then from the pull down menu, we'll choose import. Now, I have a bunch of textures here. These are all the images that we're going to be importing into my Unreal Engine. And I just want to make sure that I have all of them selected so each and every one of these gets pumped in. It's going to take a minute. These are all 4K textures. You're going to see the computer kind of methodically import all of these in. You probably are starting to see on the far right-hand side of the screen a list of kind of like confirmations and notifications by the engine that it's importing, that it's done, that it's doing some stuff for us. One of the cool things about working with the Unreal Engine is that it's a pretty intelligent environment, and it understands that certain images play certain roles inside of our texturing system. It automatically recognized that there were some images that kind of looked like a normal map, and it tagged them as normal maps. There's a couple different things that we want to look at to ensure that these images are being interpreted and kind of defined, if you will, correctly by the rendering engine. And let me show you specifically what we're talking about. So if you take a look at this, now mine looks like a gigantic rectangle. I packed my UVs and I did something that's called UDIM packing for all of my UVs and textures. And I did that just to make it easy and simple for you guys to see how this works together. So ignore this one long skinny rectangle. For yours, what you're going to be seeing when you double click on any image is a single square. It's identical to there's nothing it really is the same. Now what we're looking at here is the image. This is a preview or an image viewer, excuse me, and it's showing me specifically the base color image that we imported in. I double clicked on my base color and this is what we got. And everything's looking pretty good. Just a simple spot check. What we want to do in here is that we need to make sure that there's a couple specific things that we are looking at. If we need to make any sort of adjustment to the image, we could do that in this environment. We could saturate it. We can change the brightness and the contrast. I don't know if I really would do that here. I think doing it in Substance Painter might be a more intelligent way of doing it. But for base color, we need to make sure that the rendering engine understands that this is a color image and the sRGB flag is on. That way it's taking 100% of the color information that's in the image map and applying it to the material. So that's a good thing. I'm going to close down this window real fast, and I'm going to double click on my normal map. Now there's one small thing in here that again, we need to check out. If you look carefully, this is my normal map. I've combined them into what's called a virtual texture, just to make it easy for you guys to see this process. And in addition, what we need to look at in the normal map is that we need to make sure that this compression setting right here says normal map. It should automatically tag it. If it doesn't, that's okay. It's the default value, as one might imagine, is default. But we want to make sure that this is set as normal map. Okay, there we go. It should automatically do it, but it's our job to ensure that it is in fact been flagged. Now, if you need to make a change, make sure that you're hitting the save icon so it saves all of these properties in the image map. Unreal Engine is connecting a bunch of information, a bunch of metadata, and a bunch of other stuff, if you will, to each one of these images. So we got to make sure that we're saving any change that we make to the larger collection of information that's associated with the image when we make a change to it. So I'm just going to hit save, and we'll close out of this window. Now, finally, the last one that we want to look at is this feller. And this one right here, this one's the odd one. If you remember back into Substance Painter, we chose the Unreal Engine export template, excuse me, and it packed the ambient occlusion, the roughness, and the metallic channels all in one image. And this is what that packed image looks like. It's a little odd, a little strange. It kind of looks like this kaleidoscope of colors. But what we're seeing here is individual color channels overlaid on top of each other. We can see if we were to click on this R button and isolate just the red channel, this is all the, oops, excuse me, I turned off the red channel. Let's go. There we go. If we solo the red channel by turning off the green and the blue, excuse me, now we're looking at just the ambient occlusion. If we were to turn off the red channel and look at the green, this is the roughness channel. And last but not least, of course, this is the metallic channel. Now, mine's surprisingly, or maybe unsurprisingly, mine's almost all black. That should be, this is not a metallic object. So it should be all black, 0 value on the metallic channel. So this is what I should be seeing here. With all 3 of these color channels on, it looks kind of strange, but we're going to be accessing individual channels here in a minute in this image map. Since we're going to be using individual color channels that are in effect just black and white, we don't want the computer to be reading color information. So the change that we need to make here is under this sRGB flag. This is a default. When it imported all of this in, it saw that there was color in the channel, so it tagged it as an sRGB image. Well, we're not going to be using color information. We're going to be using grayscale color information, so non-color, if you will. So we want to turn this to off, okay? Now, each of these color channels are going to be interpreted correctly by the rendering engine. Okay, let's make a change. Since we made a change, let's save it and get to work compiling all of these images together. That's just step 1 in this entire process. Importing the textures in and making sure that we've assigned the correct color profile to each of these images is the first part. The next part involves creating or compiling all of these images together in the material. Now, I want you to look real carefully at the relationship between the material and the objects. It's very, very similar to how we're used to working with over in Blender. Just the layout is slightly different. If I was to grab the walls of my mushroom house for a moment, we're going to get all the properties of that element all over here on the far right-hand side. And if you look carefully down here, we have a section inside of our properties panels called materials. And this is the material that's automatically been assigned and applied to the object that we have selected. And this is the same material that I created over in Blender that found its way over into Substance Painter that has now found its way over here into the Unreal Engine. It is literally the exact same material. We want to make sure that we're loading all of the textures into that material itself, because this is the one that's been applied to the model. One small thing here, if you look at these elements are in every sense identical to the material setup system that we have over in Blender. We call them slots over in Blender. Here, they're called elements. Literally the exact same thing, which is pretty neat. So that hopefully that will solve some confusion as to like, what in the world is an element? It is a material slot, similar to what we had over in Blender. Inside of our content browser, here's that exact same material that's been applied to all of my mesh objects. It's all sharing the exact same material. So let's jump in and physically start assigning the textures into that material. If we double click on any material, it's going to open up our shader graph. Okay. And what's exciting about this is that it functions very identically to the way the shader graph system works over inside of Blender. It's their cousins, if you will. We can use our exact same viewport navigation commands. I'm just right clicking and dragging here. Now we don't want to use a color value to go into the base color input of our material. So let's select this one, hit the backspace key and delete it. We want to start putting all of our textures in this environment. Now the fastest and the easiest way to go and do this is to go find the images inside of your content browser. And I apologize, I know that I'm kind of blocking the images themselves, but I'm in my content browser in the bottom part of my interface, and I'm going to select the first one, hold down the shift key and grab the last one to select all 3, and then simply left click and drag the images from the content browser into my shader graph. There we go. And now all 3 of them are in here, which is pretty neat. So here's base color. This is normal. This is the ambient occlusion, roughness, and metallic. Okay, let's get to work here, assigning all of these to their appropriate homes. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so we can see this a little bit more directly. As one might imagine, the color output of our base color image is going to go into the base color input of the material. Let's go ahead and assign that real fast. Yoink, just like our shader graphs. And in a second here, as soon as things start to update, you'll see it pop in behind once we save it. Let's do the normal map as well. Normal is going to go into normal. Awesome, pretty straightforward. The one that's interesting is this fella down here, because remember, this is a packed image. The red channel is ambient occlusion, the green channel is roughness, and the blue channel is metallic. So down here, I'm going to zoom in just to make it a little bit easier for you guys to see. So we're going to take the red channel, and that's going to get plugged into the ambient occlusion. The green channel is roughness, and last but not least, the blue channel is metallic, which is kind of up there at the top. There we go. Okay, cool. Let's save our shader and see if all of this energy and all of this work has been automatically applied to our surface. And there it is. In all its glory, is just sitting, chilling here, all textured and ready to rock and roll inside of our scene. Working with materials is easy. It's very similar, if not almost identical, to the way that we've been working with our shader graph system way back over in Blender. Once we import the textures, we apply we apply all those textures into the material itself, make the connections within the nodes, hit the save button. You're not going to see it happen until you hit that save button in the material. So this is a part that folks tend to forget from time to time, is that once you make a change to your material graph, you got to hit that save button in order for it to be compiled, saved, and applied back to the mesh itself. It's not kind of live, if you will. So it's pretty exciting. So working with textures instead of Unreal is really, really easy and a foundation level stone for us for the building that we're creating here inside of Unreal.